Hello, friends. Welcome back to Mr. Keneally's Desktop. Um, Yesterday, introed the civil rights movement in the United States by talking a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. Today, we're going to look at a more controversial figure in that movement. It goes by the name Malcolm X. And the thing about Malcolm X is that we can sort of compare him to MLK because, um, he didn't believe in all the same types of principles as Martin Luther King Jr. did, and he believed in a bit more direct action. Um, he said, "I don't believe in any kind of nonviolence. I believe in the right to be nonviolent with people who are nonviolent," and really thought that African Americans should advance themselves by whatever means necessary, and that didn't sit well with a lot of people. And it made a lot of people wary of his message. Although they were after the same goal of creating this equality for African Americans in the United States, but they followed a very different approach in their fight for freedom. Um, so MLK took cues a lot from the Indian struggle and from Gandhi, in that this change will come and that we should protest it but keep it nonviolent so that our message doesn't get lost. And Malcolm X believed that we deserve these rights, we should have equal rights, and we should fight for those rights, and we should do whatever we need to do to get those rights. Um, Malcolm X actually grew up surrounded by acts of violence because his father spoke out about African American rights, and his father was the victim of a lot of violence against him and their home and their family. And so that's sort of what Malcolm X grew up seeing, and surely helped form his belief about how African Americans should approach their fight for equal rights. Later on, joined the Nation of Islam, and began speaking out against inequality. Um, he said, "A person who stands for nothing will fall for anything," and really wanted people to listen to his message and to really hold on to that message and say, like, this is what needs to happen, and you need to be willing to help make it happen. Um, so one thing that's interesting is that when he joined the Nation of Islam, is that him and many other people at this time believed that blacks should carve out their own country. That they didn't really even think that racial equality could exist in the United States, and so they believed that, if they could carve out their own section of the country, they could build their own country and they could flourish that way and have all their rights and in their own country. Um, he actually later on would break from the Nation of Islam. He went on this trip, so he started traveling all over the world. Specifically, he went on this trip to Africa, and he saw a bunch of white students caring for the sick and needy, and he began to see this issue differently. Um, Unfortunately, he wouldn't really be able to speak on that much because he was assassinated less than a year after his journey to Mecca. And so there is some controversy as to how this happened. So he went from being a part of the Nation of Islam to being part of a different sect of the Islamic religion. And I think most historians agree that the Nation of Islam wasn't happy about that, wasn't happy that he had changed his message, and that they assassinated him because of that. Um, So you don't hear nearly as much about Malcolm X as you do Martin Luther King Jr., and that's because the way that we want to look back at history. But it is important to understand that Malcolm X played a large role in getting the Equal Rights Act passed, in that he encouraged many African Americans listen to his message, and his message resonated with so many people, and he got a lot of people to begin taking action. Um, all right, so that is it for today. That's a little bit on Malcolm X. So you have a great Tuesday. Make sure you let me know if you have any questions. Goodbye.